Welcome back, guys. So in the last video we were doing the generation of access token method, and we successfully were able to generate tokens. So we did write the, let me clear this space. We did write the method to generate access token, and we were able to return access token successfully. And we did test it on Postman, so that when you send a post request to the URL that you set up, we get back the new access token. So if we send again, we get back the new access token. And initially began by writing a function to generate a new password, to generate the password, and this was the function. So we were able again to generate the password. Now why do we need the password and the access token? And we need it, I told that we need it in another method that is actually the most important method of sending the now SDKPush. Okay, so that is the most important method, and it is the one that we are going to write today. Okay, so I've just done some code and I'm going to explain to you. Don't worry, I'm going to explain to you everything and you're going to understand. Now I called it SDKPush. It is a function I'm calling SDKPush because it is actually the one that does the push. Okay, so there are various parameters that we need here, and now this is the stage that you'll see the importance of the password and the importance of the access token generation method. So this is the method that actually sends a pop-up to the user's phone asking the user if the user wants to pay the amount of money that is specified, and if it is true, the user will enter the PIN and that transaction will be authorized if the user has enough money in the M-Pesa account. Well, so we have several parameters that we need to do that. We need several things, and the first one is the URL, which is actually provided by Safaricom. So I am using the sandbox URL, which is, as you can see, it is sandbox, but if it were live, we could have used API here. And another thing that we need is the data. The data that is required by Safaricom, the M-Pesa, for that SDKPush to go through successfully. And that data is an array of, we are going to look at it, but just know that this is the data. For example, the user phone number, the pay bill number, and stuff like that. So that is the data that we need, and here we are just encoding that data. Okay, here we are encoding that data, and then after that we are here we are initializing that call request, and we first have the URL. So we need the URL. This is the URL, and here is where we set the URL. So after initializing the call instance, we set the URL here. And you remember I really talked about setting the HTTP headers that we need the token there. Okay, so here we go. Now here we have the HTTP. We are setting the HTTP headers, and if we just scroll like this, you'll find that now we are using our method here. So our HTTP headers is an array, and the first thing is the content type. We have to set it to application.json. So this is the content type. We have to set to application.json. And in the HTTP headers, we also have to pass there the authorization. So it is seriously, it is authorization :bearer, and remember this space is very important. It has to be there. Okay, so you don't do like that. we make sure that that space is there like that, and then we are concatenating with new access token. So this, you remember this new access token, that is the method that we wrote that will always return the new access token, and this is the method. Okay, this method will always return a new access token. So when we call it here, it is going to return new access token and concatenate with this. Okay, so it will be bear and then concatenated with this new access token that will be generated. So that is number one. We have now seen where we use the new access token. So where the access token will always be generated, and then it will be always be sent through the HTTP headers. And then we are setting another option, and it's called call of return transfer, and then we are setting it to true. And I told you that this return transfer means that we need the response back. So we need to send the response back. Okay, so we need that after that call has been sent, we need the response to be brought back. That's how we are adding this option and setting it to true. And this line here where you see the call post true, it means that we are sending the post request. It is post request. We are sending the post request to Safaricom, to M-Pesa. It is not again, it is a post request. That's why you are setting this on to true here. You are setting these parameters. And finally, before we execute the call request, we have this line here that says that post field. So this post field is the data that we are sending along with that request. So we are sending a post request to M-Pesa, and you are setting the headers, and then after that we are doing what we are sending together with the data that is required. Okay, so for example, this data string, as you can see, it is this defined here. It is an JSON encoded. It is encoded. It is this data that is encoded, and we are coming back to this data, so you are going to see what comprises this data. So after having this data, it is an array. We are going to encode it so that it doesn't send as an array. It sends as a string, as encoded string. And then of course Safaricom will decode it and get the data. Okay, so that is what we are sending in post fields here. So this is the data that is required, and we are now sending it. Okay, now after setting this, here we are now executing the request. Well, I just used the if so that in case of anything, of course to return an error, but I just wanted to return maybe SDKPush failed. So here I'm just saying if this was executed successfully, or in other way, I can just do this. I can just maybe to remove the if, maybe if it is confusing, I can just cut that, and then I can paste that. It's the same thing. Then after doing that, I can just return the call response. I can just do that again. It's the same thing. So I can remove this. I can remove this if else statement here. Okay. This one. Yeah, I think that is it. Well, now we have now after showing you that, I just left data so that I can explain to you in details. So what is it that is included in this variable? See here, and I will just bring it. I'll just paste it down here so that I will be able to explain to you. I just broke it down into parts so that I can explain to you well. So let's now come back to this important part of call of data. I just want to paste this data here so that I can take you through. So this data, as you can see, there are various parameters that are set here. For example, we have the business code, business shortcode. So what is the business shortcode? This business shortcode is the pay bill number. Actually, after registering for pay bill number, they are going to send you that shortcode. But now in our case, since we are using the sandbox, where do we get it? So let me just log into the developer portal. And then my app, this is the app that you are using, and that will not get it here. So for us to get that, we'll go to test credentials. So if you just press test credentials, so it is developer.safaricom.co.ke/test credentials. Just hit enter. And you're going to get this Lipa and M-Pesa online. You're going to get this one here. So this is the test business code given by Safaricom. So if we are working on the sandbox, this is the one for testing. So we just copy this and we'll go back to our code and paste it there. So that is the business shortcode, and this is the pay bill number actually that you usually get after registering for pay bill number or for Lipa and M-Pesa. Okay, so and then we have this password. Now you remember the first function we wrote was to generate the password. I hope you remember that. So this is where now it is used. So for us to use, just do this and then Lipa and M-Pesa password. So that is where we will use that function that we wrote. So I was preparing for this, that's why I wrote it first and then generate the token, and then now the SDKPush method. Now when this function is called, this method is called, it will always return what? It will always return the password. So meaning that if we call it here, it is going to populate this password with whatever password that will be generated up there. And then we have the current timestamp. This current timestamp we are generating it the same way we generated it in the Lipa and M-Pesa password method. So we are just doing the same thing here. So this is going to generate the current timestamp. And then you have the transaction type, and the transaction type is actually set to customer pay bill online. So this one is actually always set to this. And now you have the part of the amount. So the amount is the amount of money that you want to deduct from the customer's M-Pesa account. So if the customer is paying for a product that is worth 1,000 shillings, here you will put there 1,000 like that. If that product is worth 50 shillings, just do 50 like that. So I did just 5 for testing. And then we have party A and party B. Okay, so this party A is the customer's phone number and has to begin with 254 and then the phone number. So maybe I can use mine, 264, 250. I just use this number for testing, so it will be 254 7 2658 2228. But you remember that some of these fields they are going to be dynamic. At the end of this whole thing, I'm not going to leave you at this stage where you are able to do an SDKPush, because many tutorials gets up to there, and now you don't know how you will automate it, maybe because you know these variables, most of them needs to be dynamic. It will not be placing the user's number here like that. It should be dynamic, where now you get the user's phone numbers, you save them in the database, and when this user wants to pay, you have to retrieve that phone number, and then you, after retrieving that phone number, you do what? You place it whatever the user is. If it is user A, you place the phone number here. If it was user E, you place the phone number here, and then the amount of money of the product that the user just clicked on. Okay, and then now the party B is still this business shortcode. So just copy that and paste it here. And then the phone number, of course, it is just the same phone number here, the user's phone number. And we have the now callback URL. What is the callback URL? Well, if you're not familiar with the callback URL, I say let's say that you have requested for certain information, and this information has to take time to be prepared. You will not just sit there waiting for it. You can now you can maybe tell somebody that you do whatever you are doing. After finishing that, please send that information here, or send somebody, I am at this place, send somebody to bring me that. So that is how callback works. And if maybe I did explain what callback URL is. If you look at my videos, we have the one that talks about the callback URL, so you can go through. If maybe you don't understand well, you can look at my channel. I did explain what callback URL is. But basically, after sending this request, if the user entered the details correctly, the M-Pesa is going to process that, and after processing, it is going to send you the information about how the transaction went. So if the user was able to pay successfully, it is going to send you the username, M-Pesa name, the user's phone number, the things like the amount paid, the amount that is in your PayBill account now, and things like those. So that information is going to be sent to this callback URL, and you have to process it. Okay, so if that so we'll be waiting for this information at this URL. So we'll write a function that every time it receives a request at this URL, we are going to save that request. Okay, so it is going to be saving that request, and now we are going to extract all those parameters, and we'll be saving them in the database. Well, so that is it. And now we have the remaining two. We have the account reference. So this will be appearing on customer screen. So if we do a push, SDK push, if the user clicks on pay and you implemented the SDK push, the user is going to receive a message like pay Simon's Tech School payment a certain amount, and the detail is going to appear on the customer screen. So you just remember that, and that is and the description, whatever the transaction is all about. If it was maybe selling a product, maybe buying this and that product, you can just set that as that description. So this is all that data we are calling the call post data. So this is the data that is required to be sent along. And now after having this data like this, we are now encoding it. Now it is an array, we are converting it to a string. So here we are encoding it now, and now sending it as an encoded string to as we do this request. Okay, so if all goes well, if this function is set it up correctly, we will be able now to pop up to do the SDK push, and the user's phone should receive that M-Pesa pop-up asking the user to enter the password, to enter the PIN to authorize that transaction. So let me just go through. The first thing, they are the parameters that we need, and the parameters we need, we say that you have the URL. This is where we are sending the request. We need the data, and we need to encode that data. We need the in that data we saw how we apply the password, and then you also need the access token so that Safaricom can authenticate that this is from it, because this is from, it's not from any other place, it is from Safaricom. That's why you are including the new access token for verification. Okay, so after that, now we have to test. Now I hope you understood. In case you didn't understand, just maybe you can have, in case you have any question, just ask in the comment section and I'll get back to you. So after doing this, I believe that our method will work correctly now. So let's test it. For us to test, you have to set up a root in the, and I'm setting the root in the api.php file. So let me just copy this and paste it there, and remember it is a post request. So here we have to change the method to SDKPush, like that. This is how we define the method in the controller. It's like this, SDKPush. And then here is where we are going to send. Now we have to set up the route. So just do M-Pesa, and then you can do SDKPush, like that. I'm just doing this for demonstration purpose, but you can do any, you can do it anywhere you want. This is just a route, right? You can define it anywhere you are used to defining your routes. So after that, I'm going to save this file by doing Control S, and now I will copy this and go to the postman to send that request there. So just copy that, go to postman, and then I'll just remove that up to there and paste that. So you have to remove one of the / like that. So let's send and see if it will work. And there you go. So it's saying that success, and on my phone I'm actually receiving the SDK. I'm actually receiving the pop-up, and it's saying, do you want to pay shillings 5 to Safaricom test 12? You remember that is the application, that actually that is the name that the Safaricom gives our application when we create it in the sandbox. Account number, that is Simon's Tech School payment. So remember that is what we set here. That is what we set in the controller. And if you delay, that SDKPush is going to cancel. So remember, this is what I told you, and that is what comes as account number reference. Okay, so let's send again. I'll screenshot and I'll show you. So I'm sending, it is successful, and I'm receiving the pop-up on my phone. Okay, so if I enter my PIN and I have that amount in my phone number, what is going to happen is that it is going to deduct that money from my M-Pesa account, and then it's going to be transferred to this account, to this pay bill number, if it actually exists. Okay, so remember, this is the company's pay bill number. It can be any organization that you are doing this integration for. Okay, and now after that, we have been able to do SDKPush successfully, and it is working correctly. Now, if in case I authorize this, it is going to send that data to that callback URL, and we have to be waiting on this callback URL so that we are able to save that data. So you have to be waiting on this callback URL. So you have to create a route that is close to something like this, so that this whatever we'll put here, you have to wait on it, so that when the request comes, we'll be able to do to save the data or do something that data that comes. So I'm going to show you this in the next tutorial. So thank you so much. Please consider subscribing, and we'll meet in the next section, where now we'll be handling the data that comes back, handling the response that comes back from Safaricom now after the customers are authorized successfully. Thank you so much, and let's meet then.